I welcome you to a more of a regular scheduled technical subcommittee meeting. Um, we had some interesting times the last two meetings. This time demonstrating the MiEnvrio, oh, I misspelled that, portal by Kaitlyn and Kaitlyn. Kaitlyn is the Air Quality Outreach Liaison for Michigan's Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy's Environmental Support Division. Prior to this role, Kaitlyn was an inspector with the Air Quality Division for 7 years. She has a bachelor's degree from Grand Valley State University in biomedical science and a Master of Public Health degree from the University of Michigan. And assuming there's no complaints with order of presentation, and again, there's no problem with that with me if you want to mix things up. Oregon's your DEQ online platforms, and we have with us both Hillary Sales and Matt Hoffman, both with the Oregon DEQ. Hillary is a program coordinator for air quality at Oregon DEQ, where she oversees the small business assistance and asbestos programs. With over a decade in the environmental field, Hillary provides technical expertise in air quality education and outreach. Matt is a project manager with DEQ's information systems. Matt facilitated the development of DEQ's air quality permitting programs and the agency complaints program. Matt has a background in public health and has worked with DEQ for 7 years, primarily in air quality management and projects. With that, take it away.
Kaitlyn, are you gonna do the presentation first, or
sure. It doesn't matter to me. I can if you want.
Whatever works for you all, that's fine.
Well, let's go with Kaitlyn, unless there's any objections.
Great.
All right, let me get my screen up here. So hopefully you guys can see that. I just have a couple quick slides and we'll get in there. So thanks everyone for having me. Again, my name is Kaitlyn DeVries. I'm our air quality outreach liaison or specialist for EGLE, which is Michigan's environmental group. I'll be discussing our new platform that EGLE is moving all of our divisions to, which is called MiEnvrio Portal. So what exactly is MiEnviro Portal? So before I get into the specifics of it, MiEnviro Portal is an expansion and a rebranding of another EGLE platform, which was previously called MiWaters. We love to put My for Michigan on everything that we have here. So we just recently onboarded the air quality division, which is primarily where I do a lot of my work with small businesses and outreach over the last year and a half. So that makes in the platform, we have our water division, our air division, and our medical waste program. They are currently, the next phase of it is to onboard the rest of our materials management or waste division. So I'm going to speak mostly to air as I go through this because that's more my realm, but I know enough about the water and the medical waste to be a little bit dangerous, but I'll primarily be talking about water as we go through, or air as we go through. So MiEnviro is a comprehensive electronic notification, permitting, and emissions reporting and compliance system. It's for those of you who have Enviro in your states, it is pretty much that with a bunch of customizations and integrations that we did. And I know a few of them were the only ones in the country who have integrated some of those software systems. So we moved to this online platform because we'd been doing everything like from on paper. Dry cleaning, asbestos, And we integrated all of that into this one database so that we could have one-stop shopping for our businesses as well as one-stop shopping for the public in an effort to make it look more transparent. So this is kind of what our splash landing screen looks like. We've got a lot of information out there for asbestos, for submitting complaints, your general public view, which is that site explorer map. You can sign up for alerts to get to know when there's public notices in your area. I do a lot of outreach as well. So that is a key thing for my role. As well as we just recently, I would say in the last, it came out in May, launched Beach Guard, which is a notification system for all of the beaches and public beaches around the state. Obviously living in the Great Lakes state, we have a lot of beaches out there. So that's super important for the public to know which beaches have any advisories or important things that they should know. So I am going to share a different screen now and get us into the database. So let me just change my screen here. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing me toggle between the two. Just give me a okay that I changed screens properly. Okay, see, I'm assuming I did. So again, this is our splash landing page. There's a lot of things on here for the small businesses to be able to take advantage of. You can quickly search for your asbestos notifications. One unique thing on here is we have our air toxic screening levels, which is helpful for our businesses that are looking to either comply with one of the exemptions that we have or use it for the permitting process. You can search for the different chemicals all by CAS number and see all of our statuses, screening levels, any other type of footnotes that we have, and then view any supporting documentations that we may have out there for why that was developed or when it was last updated. I use that a lot to help our small businesses comply with our exemptions because we do have a lot that they can use if they fall into a particular bucket based upon their screening levels. We used to have it in a different separate database, but now it's right here at their fingertips to be able to get back in and input any of that information into MiEnvrio if they need to share it with the rest of the agency or their district inspector. Beach Guard, since I said that was new, I just wanted to point it out. It's pretty cool to be able to see all of the beaches around the state and see any not advisories or notifications. I live over in the Grand Rapids area, so I go out to Grand Haven a lot and to the beaches out there, and you can see any of the sampling results or any of the advisories that they had going back, usually looking for E. coli or any of the other notifications. Some of these advisories are pretty old, but it was a new launch that we had in the last month. So now I'm going to go into our system a little bit, show you a little bit more of the air permitting world, which is what I live in more. So I am in our testing environment. So just so you know, and I am signed in as an internal user just to give me access to a lot more things to show you than what the external user might see. As they will only have access to the things that would be applicable to them based upon the permit type that they have or the site that they are. If they're an asbestos site, they're only going to have access to the asbestos things. If they are Title V source, they're going to have the access to all of our Title V forms. But if they're not a Title V source, they won't have access to any of those Title V forms. So this is just one of our test sites. It's pretty easy for them to use. They can, when they show up on their dashboard, they can start a new form and go in and pick what they want to do. If they need to fulfill a reporting obligation, they can click on that and it will show them all of the reports that they may need for different things, including our annual emissions report and our annual equipment inventory review. So speaking of emissions, one thing that Michigan did when we rolled out this database is we integrated SLICE. I think some other states out there use SLICE, the state and local emissions inventory system. So we integrated that right into our MiEnvrio portal so that it can pull all of that information. Right, all of that information that they're entering in terms of equipment, and it can be pulled right into our permitting database. So they only have to fill out those things one time, and the systems will talk to each other. And if they've got a piece of equipment that is permitted and it also needs to report emissions, it's going to show up. They've only filled out one form instead of filling out two forms, and it's in both spots. We found that to be pretty user friendly for people, that it's already there, so they don't have to fill it out in what we used to have more than one database. Our air quality inspectors can also go in there and have it in there if a certain piece of equipment violated an emission limit. They have the information in there as well to do any sort of citation or anything that they need to do from a compliance standpoint as well. Or fill out a form because they need to report something for a specific piece of equipment or a specific pieces of equipment or a specific federal regulation that they may need to report to. So in SLICE, some of you are probably already familiar with it, but this is what it looks like. It's got all of the facility information in here with release points, control devices, control paths, etc. I won't go through all of that because we definitely don't have time, as well as the equipment forms. We do now have everybody do an annual equipment inventory review in the fall so that everything is set up and on ready to go for emissions reporting season, which opens in January. So they can get it all spruced up and ready. So I do want to show you just kind of our permits, what we have in there. If they were to click on start a new application, it will give them a list of all of the application types that they may want. And they could get acid rain, they could do an environmental audit if they have something they want to disclose to us. We have a bunch of general type permits with all of the information really spelled out clearly for them if they need, if they have that type of equipment. Air permit to install new is our kind of general package. If you need to submit something that we don't have a general PTI application for. So what's really nice about this is it lays out everything that you're going to need to do. So you've got the general information here on your basic forms. The application equipment inventory form is the form that I was talking about that will speak to SLICE and input all of that data that you're going to fill out on this form into SLICE for when you're ready to report emissions against it. We do have specific forms as needed. If you're installing a boiler, it's going to pull in just that information that you need specific to a boiler, rather than how we used to have companies submit permit applications, which basically said, follow these steps. We still have guidance available online for them, but follow these steps and give us what you think we need to know. With these, we're definitely asking them more pointed questions. So I'm going to just click into that one to give you a sense of what our forms look like, because we put a lot of work into getting a lot of the more general, more common types of permits that we see here in Michigan. So it pops up like this and gives you some general instructions and who to contact if you've got questions, which is essentially me. Unless they want to contact our permit section, they can do that too. But it already has pulled in a lot of my information because I am filling it out directly from my site in MiEnvrio portal, which is helpful because it should save them time. It gives me pre-populated names for everything based upon Michigan's naming convention, and asks exactly what we're looking for in terms of how to be able to permit this type of boiler. All of our forms are generally, I'm not going to save this, are generally laid out the same way, asking for very specific information so that we can get the permit application together and submit it as quickly as possible. And then all of the back and forth that we do for processing the permit application is done through the portal. They will get a notification on their dashboard if there are questions that they need to answer for us and in order for our permit engineers to continue to process the permit application. If they missed something or another question came up, if they were modeling something, all of that is done in the portal back and forth for submitting things rather than done through email. That way it's part of our official record as well, and not, oops, I forgot to print that email and put it in the file. So just showing a little bit more of our forms here for filling out the permit application. Kind of gives you a run through of the basic things that we're asking for, but then we'll break everything down into a lot more detail. Again, this is our testing environment, so it's doing a little spinny wheel, a little bit longer than normal, but here we go. So it's got the whole sidebar section here to fill out, which for me, helping small businesses, when I'm helping somebody with this, it's super helpful that I already know what questions are going to get asked to them if they tell me that they have this type of equipment, and we can run through all of the check boxes to make sure that we're getting the best permit application into our permit engineers that we can. We do have a separate form for crushers. So this isn't a portable site, but it can pull in all of the internal information that we have. So again, saving time. And then some of the other questions that it's going to ask is going to bring up different types of documentation that one might need in order to get the application together. I don't do any modeling as part of my compliance assistance. Maybe some of you guys do in your states. But if somebody actually had to model because they were subject to PSD or something like that, that's where I would take a step back and say, I'm probably not the best person to help you anymore. And I would have to steer them towards a consultant because I just don't have the capabilities on my end to do any modeling or anything like that. But I can definitely help them with all of the other things that they are getting asked for in terms of PTE, emission calculations, all of that. So it's pretty user-friendly in terms of the application in here. A couple of the other features I'll point out before I hand it over to Hillary for Oregon's is in here as well, they can get back directly to their equipment inventory. They can pay their fees. We've integrated paying fees for emissions reporting in here as well. So that would be in their financial section. Any environmental projects that they might do in terms of like a SEP, we could put it in here as well, because enforcement actions and compliance actions are also housed in here. This test site doesn't have any of those, but I can show you a couple that do. This is a real site just because I don't have a good test site that has some of the other stuff, but you can see in here that we've got violations that are showing up, as well as fees that they have paid or haven't paid. This is 2025, so their fee hasn't been paid yet, but it's helpful for everybody to be able to see that internally and externally to know that they've got something due on their end, and we can see it show up on their dashboard as well. The companies will be able to see anything that's upcoming, priority, any schedules that they have. Schedules by that I mean anything that is due to us. It's due on a schedule to be submitted to EGLE. They can see any of that is showing up. Evaluations are able to go in and see any inspection reports. This used to be one of my sites when I was an inspector. They can go in and see the reports as well as our end. And another nice feature that we have is workflows for the internal processing. It's pretty much acts as a vehicle to route everything to all of the appropriate players across the state. In Michigan, our permit section is housed in Lansing. So if you're working up in the UP and you have to get stuff to Lansing, and if it's nice to have it all in here because you can send it with a click of a button and route it through versus trying to wait for either snail mail to get all the way up to Marquette or sending it via email and hoping that somebody doesn't miss it in the hundreds of emails that we all get. Couple other things I want to point out that are nice features for us to have here in Michigan is Inspect. Inspect are only our dry cleaning facility, our dry cleaning inspectors use. It helps them fill out their inspection reports. We will be onboarding our asbestos inspectors to use Inspect as well. It's not fully integrated, but it'll be a online inspection platform that they can use mobile. We only have 2 dry cleaning inspectors that cover the entirety of the state. So that is a pretty far distance between, the Metro Detroit area down that way, all the way over to Marquette and Iron Mountain, leading your way towards Wisconsin. So, and then all of our reports, and then the Site Explorer, which brings you out to what the external users can see. And this is something that Michigan hasn't really had before, in terms of transparency to the general public or to even industry, to know, hey, what does the neighbor down the street do? Or what does my competitor have in terms of a permit, because I want the same permit that they have. All of our stuff used to be kind of hidden, and you'd have to do like 8 clicks to get down to see where the permits were housed or the last inspection report, because we would post just the most current inspection report. And now we're going back to the integration of our first online databases, which was the early 2000s when they switched to doing anything electronic versus just have everything in paper. So this has been a pretty neat thing to see kind of what's going on in your community. Again, I'm from Grand Rapids, so I can kind of see what's going on in some of my local hangout areas, down to just click on and see what's going on the waterfront here. So we've been doing a lot of outreach and training to the general public as well, and we've got more in the works to show what they need to see. So that wasn't a very good example because it looks like it's just a water site, but if I go down here, can see this is a coffee roaster, so they can kind of see what's going on at the coffee roaster down the street, aside from making delicious coffee. But they can see what the permits that they have, any supporting documents that was going on. So that's kind of MiEnvrio in a nutshell. We're very happy to have onboarded it here in Michigan, bringing us into the 21st century with tools that are more modern and less paper. I, for one, was getting sick of the paper sitting on my desk all the time. So we are really excited to have this platform and are still working through some of the hurdles and kinks as we really just launched the permitting and compliance reporting components for air in January of this year and onboarded our asbestos program in April. So we are still really new to the online platform, but really excited to see what it has moving forward. So that's what I got. I'll pass it over to Hillary.
Thank you, Kaitlyn.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to hold off for a minute if folks have questions that they want to ask or anything like that. Or we can kind of get rolling. Okay. Well, thank you for having us here. I'm Hillary Sales, and I know, Mark, thank you for introducing us in the beginning. And I have brought along my colleague, Matt Hoffman, who also works with DEQ, Oregon DEQ. And we have a program, a new online platform. I say new, it's really been in the works and working for the last 5 years or so. But the air quality portion of it really just got up and running in November. But Matt, I'll let you handle it. Matt is my go-to guy when it comes to YDO stuff. I don't use the platform a whole lot, but it's really cool, and I'll let Matt talk about it. So thanks for having us.
Thanks, Hillary. Hello, everyone. Happy morning or afternoon to you, wherever you're based. Glad to see some folks from Indiana on the call. That's where I grew up, in Fort Wayne. So nice to see everybody. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of a slide deck, and then I'll move on to a short product demonstration following that. So I'm going to attempt to share. Let's see if we can get this to work. Share, and I'm going to go ahead and start this share. Okay, can everybody see my intro slide?
Yeah, we can see it.
So Your DEQ Online is our new cloud-based environmental data management system. It's taking all of our paper-based processes and it's basically putting them onto a cloud-based server that's accessible by both the public, our permittees, and by the agency. And so similar to the other program you just saw, it essentially does the same thing. It takes our kind of old paper-based processes and moves them online. So this is a list of the programs at DEQ that are currently using Your DEQ Online. And as Hillary mentioned, a lot of the air quality programs just went live at the end of November of last year. This is a little bit of an older slide deck. This one says programs moving into YDO, but these two groups of programs are also currently in the system and just launched within the last month or two. So for the public side, what we call the public portal, we have 3 different user types. You have an RO, the responsible official, which essentially they're assigned to their facility and they have the ability to draft submittals and to go ahead and submit those. We also have something called a consultant role, and the responsible officials are able to tie consultants to their account and then are able to distinguish at the site level and at the submittal or application level what permissions they want to grant their consultant. So the consultant role can come in, they can start an application on behalf of an RO. They can fill everything out. The one thing that consultants can't do is submit the submittal. So in this methodology, the consultant will prepare the submittal, they'll let the RO know that it's ready for their review. They take a look, and then the RO is the actual person that submits it. And then we have general public accounts. So in YDO, you can navigate to the public portal. You can look at permit records. You can look at things on public notice without an account. But if you want to provide comment on a public notice or upload any documents, you do need to sign up for just a free general public account. So as I just mentioned, these are the things that folks can look at through our public portal by clicking the Public Records and Services button. And all of our public notice process is now integrated into here. So whereas in the past we collected comments via email or otherwise, all of our links now direct folks to submit comments through the public portal. The system's also used for our complaints program, where folks can report pollution. Okay, so I'm going to skip the questions. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to so now I'll share again. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the dashboard for a public user account. You can see the watermark down here in the right-hand corner. We have several different environments that we use. This is pre-production, so this is the environment that's most similar to our production environment. So when we do demonstrations or when we want to experiment with different settings or submittals, we come into one of these environments to do it so that we're not kind of tampering with live system data. So funny enough, I also did an example case of a boiler. And so this would be the screen that the public user sees, the permittee, after they log in. And so over here on the left, they have some icons at their disposal. They can look at the permits, licenses, or certificates that they've been issued. They can look at reporting obligations that the agency has set for them. They can initiate a new submittal. So for example, if I click that, and I wanted to submit an ACDP, which is our air contaminant discharge permit, I can click that and you see the various options. So if I click any one of these plus buttons, it will open up the application. We also have the informational I button here is tied to a static PDF that is an instructional document for each one of these submittal types. So for today's purposes, I started an application for a basic ACDP, which is our lowest level of permit. So because I started it, I can come to pending submittals, and I can see that this one here is what I started today. If I click the pencil icon, I can go into the application or submittal. And so what this does is it produces a form, and these forms are dynamic loading. So I fill out my basic information. Abbreviation can be used for the plant site name. I could pick on the map. I can actually open this Google Map tool. I can drag this pin to wherever my facility is located. And then I click the check mark and it will populate this information for us, including the lat long. It asks some other basic questions. and then it asks for the permit category. And so by dynamically loading, when you select a different permit category, the form will change to adjust for that permit type. And so below this are the questions that are populated for the boiler permit type. So I go in, I fill in some of this information. We have some checks in here to make sure that you're applying for the right permit. So for example, if I had a boiler with a heat rating of 40, I get the warning down here that says that you can only apply for this permit for heat ratings up to 30. So it prompts them to stop and apply for a different class of permit. So this is the basic info tab. It collects a lot of information, contacts, etc. The system also allows us to set attachment requirements based on selections made within the form. So for example, if you were filling out an application for a different permit and it asked you if you completed a risk assessment for our air toxics program and you selected no, the system will populate a requirement over here for that form to be filled out and included with this application. And so the required attachments make it so, we typically get all the information we need by the time it's submitted. Whereas in the past, people might submit incomplete applications and we have to go back and forth and say, we need a land use statement, etc. So the system prompts them to do that. So in this case, I'm going to skip the attachments and I can go through these tabs. So for payment, I would pay the $180 permitting fee. We have a technology fee that is used to support the ongoing maintenance of the system. And I can pay via ACH or electronic check. I can pay via credit card, which does come with an additional processing fee, or I can select check by mail. For this instance, I'll do that so we can get through the workflow. Confirm that. And then I'll go to the submittal tab. On tab 4, I can download a PDF summary of my application and take a look at that to make sure that all the information is correct. And then I go to the submission tab. Read the certification statement. Co-signing is not required for this one. I have a security question that I set when I set up my account. We have a PIN. It's also developed when you set up your account. There's a question about confidential business information or trade secrets. All of our user guides have specific instructions on how to submit if you're including confidential business information. In this case, I'm not, so I can go ahead and click submit. Okay, so I get the summary that I've submitted or handed in this application to DEQ. So now we'll take a look on what that looks like on the agency side. Okay, so on this tab, I have the agency side, and you can see that I have a lot of different options here. Similar to the Michigan system, we have a number of reports that can be accessed. A lot of these are based on our old databases and the information that we used to query. Some of them have also been developed specifically for this system as well. One thing that these online systems typically do is offer you much greater access to data, whereas our old access databases, we couldn't query as much. These tracking mechanisms within your DEQ Online are very granular, and so we can get some really valuable information from our reports. I can also go to what's called the site module. I can look at different sites. There's one for inspections to schedule and conduct and fill out the inspection forms, to set violations, conduct enforcement. I can look at all of the permits in the system. There's some various administrative features that we have access to as well. So in this case, I would go to submitted submittals. And I can see here that I have a basic permit application that was submitted today by Ramesh, and it's for a boiler. It says non-site subject here because this site has not yet been created. Rather than linking to a site in the application, I chose to create a new site because it's a new facility. I can see these two icons here, one that it's an online submission, and this payment icon indicates that it's still unpaid. Because I selected check by mail, it's not paid yet, and when that check clears within our financial system, this icon will go away. And so essentially what I would do is I could click on the pencil to look at the submittal itself, or I can click on the eyeball to complete the workflow. As was mentioned in the last presentation, the workflow is DEQ's business process for processing a permit application or an annual report or otherwise. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm not going to go through that workflow. I'm going to go through one that's already been completed so we can take a look. So essentially we can design these steps as we want them to occur as our original business process goes, and the system can assign them to certain roles within the system. So for example, the administrative completeness review, which would include things like, did we get all the attachments we needed? Has payment been received? Is everything filled out? Is done by our permit coordinator role. And so we can see that the system has automatically assigned the first step to the permit coordinators. The permit coordinator then is able to assign a permit writer to this workflow. So Brian has been assigned. And after he is assigned, you can see that the system automatically assigns permit writer tasks to Brian. And the assignments will bounce around to whoever the responsible person is for that step. So the permit writer would conduct technical completeness, they would draft the permit, and then the regional manager, Anya in this case, would come in and approve the permit action. We go through to issuance, which is again assigned to the permit coordinators, and they can come in here and there's a widget for them to upload the permitting document and it pulls it into the system. Finally, after that, for this workflow, we have prorated annual fee amounts. Our permits, the annual fees are based on the date of issuance, the calendar date of issuance for the permit. And so our invoicing coordinator, Don, is able to come in here and look after issuance has occurred and then calculate the correct annual fee amount and assess that fee. Finally, there's a task to update the site module, which includes entering things like SIC or NAICS codes, updating contacts, and otherwise. When Don comes in and he determines the fee amount that needs to be assessed, he can actually come up to this payment tab here. You can add whatever fees are necessary. And then there's this tab called Executive Decision, where you can come in and click Send Back and enter a message and execute that. And what that does is it's similar to sending back a paper application in the mail. We need more information or we need a payment. So I can use that and it will kick it back to the dashboard of that public user and it will send them an email letting them know that more information is needed. The system also generates automated emails based on the workflow steps that have been completed. On the public side, I can see this review flow here. So I can see exactly what step the processing is on, which really helps for transparency. It reduces the amount of phone calls or emails needed because the permittee knows where the processing is at that point. For all of the details that are within these workflow steps, those are viewable to the agency only. So essentially, after you go through issuance, the permit issues, it appears in the public portal on the user's dashboard. And it's also viewable from our public portal for the general public user to go and look at that permit. Again, for basics, we don't have a public notice period, but for other permits, we have that integrated. So that's pretty much it. There's a correspondence feature It allows you to communicate with the RO that submitted this. All of this communication is tied to this submittal. And so similar to, printing an email and putting it in the paper file, here it's permanently enshrined with this submittal. I can see the attachments that were provided. The issuance documents occur here. And if we went through public comment period, I would see those on this tab here. So it's kind of one-stop shopping. So I think that's pretty much all I have. Let's go to questions.
Hey, this is Jenna McWhirter with the State of Tennessee Small Business Program, and I think this is kind of a question for all of you guys. How did the rollout of these different portals go? And I have many questions after that, but maybe we'll just start with that.
Kaitlyn, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So our rollout, we learned a lot from when water rolled out. They rolled out first, several years ago. So our rollout had some hiccups and some rocky moments. But overall, we got pretty good feedback. I think our biggest downfall was that we started rollout in December of 2024 and then took a 2-week hiatus for the holidays and then finished rolling it out in January. I definitely would not recommend that, but our hand was forced because we needed to get billable emissions in. So I definitely would not recommend that. But one thing we learned about it was the more communication to your external users, the better. We thought we were communicating. We were sending out monthly bulletins saying, this is what's happening. Here's where you can find more information. And we definitely got a lot of our front office, the EGLE director, the governor's office definitely got phone calls that we didn't tell them. And nobody knew it was coming. And then by them, I mean industry. But we definitely communicated what we thought was a lot, but I guess our lot wasn't enough. But that's one thing, big takeaway. If we had to redo it, I would do it again and make it even more. Even if it's the same message going out, I would do more.
Cool.
Did you get any feedback about that, about what would have been better? Sorry, Gina, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're good.
You know, we asked that question too, and they just said to speak to them directly. You know, we've got a lot of big autos and the kind of those key players, they wanted to be told directly through us, like, dear Mr. CEO of Ford, we are rolling this out. They really couldn't pinpoint anything other than being more directly to them as an individual, rather than our mass gov delivery notifications, which is the platform that we rely on.
Yeah, thanks, Kaitlyn. So for DEQ, it was similar. Rollout is difficult. It's difficult for the public audience and it's difficult for the agency audience. I think one of our lessons learned is that similar to, a home construction project, take the estimate that's provided, double the amount of time, double the amount of money, and then you'll be somewhere close. So we found out that it's very difficult to take a legacy process and integrate that into a fully electronic system, because in a lot of cases with state or local agencies, you do things because of the rules, but in some cases you do things because it's the way it's been done, since the agency started. And what the electronic systems do is force you to think about those processes in a very kind of linear way on how to go step by step and complete the same thing online. So our development took longer than we expected. The testing of the product and the refinement took much longer than we expected. And so we had to push our go live date several times. There is never a perfect time to go live. There's always something going on, you know, whether it's inspection season or invoicing time or annual reports. And we went live in end of November, and we had annual reporting for all of our sources due on typically February 15th. And so that was a huge lift for us to set all those obligations. Getting people signed up, the external users, was very difficult. It started off as a trickle. You know, like Kaitlyn said, we really had to do everything short of knocking on their doors and saying, you need to sign up. So I think our most effective method of communication that we found was sending paper letters. You know, when we use GovDelivery or email, we found out that a lot of our contacts were outdated and we were getting bounce backs, and not everybody reads their email. So we found it very important to send an official letter. You know, when somebody sees something that has a window envelope that says the state of Oregon, they tend to pay more attention. So that was kind of our most successful method. Again, communicate early and often, over communicate about it, because our permittees, they're focused on running their business, right? And so we really have to intentionally communicate to let them know what they need to do, get signed up, so that they're not missing reporting deadlines or otherwise.
Thank you guys so much for your insight. And I think, Lena, here, you go ahead. I don't want to take up all the question time.
No, you're fine. You can ask. I can ask then.
And the other kind of question I wanted to ask was like with your respective portals, was there anything that worked particularly well or anything that didn't work well?
I guess I can start on this one, Kaitlyn, but from the public side, everything worked pretty well. The navigation is fairly straightforward. We have a lot of documentation that we created for each one of the submittal types. We also have videos and documents that direct people how to get signed up for an account, go through all those basic steps of linking your consultants, etc. On the agency side, I think our biggest challenge was with the workflows. So I'm going to share again just quickly to give an example here. So for our workflows, we have some very complex workflows. And so, for example, our notice of construction and modification applications are combined into one submittal. And there are about 8 to 10 subtypes. And so for each one of those, you need to have a different workflow. So for example, if I go into Valley again here, and I look at my templates, we have a different workflow that occurs for each one of these actions. And they get very complicated. There's branching, there's logic that is based on selections made within the workflow that will take a different path. It's kind of like choose your own adventure. It'll take a different pathway if you have a public notice. If you have a public hearing, it'll take a different pathway. If it's a different type of mod, it takes a different pathway. And so they took us a long time to come up with. It's just really a very tedious exercise. And then testing them and making sure that everything is working correctly was a huge lift. Because you can't depend on coming in and looking at this kind of mapping of the workflow. You actually have to go through each scenario and test that. So to do that, you have to create a site, an application, and come in and process that on the agency side. So that was certainly our biggest, and I think remains probably our biggest challenge with the authority side, is the workflows.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot with what Matt said as well. Our external users, after the initial grumbling phase of doing this, really seemed to be okay with it. We similarly have videos, instructions that continually get updated. And now that we're 5 months in, doing with the new releases of new changes, getting that communication out to our external users is something that we have our eyes on moving forward so that they know, hey, this changed. You're going to want to make sure that you take a look at the new updated instructions. The biggest hurdles that we had, aside from workflows, like Matt said, that's one thing that when we rolled it out or when we did the planning phase back 8 years ago or so, they wrote down what the process flow was then, and that doesn't look like exactly what it does today. And they've had to rewrite some workflows and rewrite some procedures of how business is conducted internally in order to make sure that we're getting the end product that we want out of those workflows and getting those done and getting some of the staff on board with the changes is really one of the biggest hurdles. A lot of staff still thinks it's terrible and they'll tell you that. And just trying to be that champion from our perspective, both internally and externally, and saying, you know what, I know you don't like it, but what can I do to help you? And I've had plenty of sit downs and one-on-ones with internal staff and be like, so what don't you get? To walk them through it. Because if you can help one person, then maybe they can help the rest of their business group to get there. And then the one other challenge that we had with stuff is since MiEnvrio is EnViro, which is an off-the-shelf product, but then we customized it, is we did find some limitations into things that we weren't able to change that we wanted to, and we just couldn't based on budgetary restrictions. I'm sure everybody knows about budgets, and they can only get what they can get with the money that they're given. And so that's always a constraint.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, Kaitlyn. This question is for you. I was wondering with MiEnviro, is it developed by Windsor Solutions?
Yes.
We have something similar in Kansas, that is Kansas Environmental Information Management System. And why I was asking is if you have any guidance documents, especially with respect to water.
Yeah, we've got guidance. I can email those to you on our website for what we've done with water. And then Windsor, if you guys use Windsor for what you have, they have their own internal wiki, which has Windsor's kind of inside instructions on how to do things. And then our instructions have some of those customizations that we did. But I can
but
get
this
those
is a user-based one, so for them it would be, yeah.
for the
For the
external user.
customers, yeah.
Yeah, I can send you what we have.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
And for DEQ, the product that we have is developed by a vendor called Enfotech, ENFO Tech. They're based out of New Jersey, and the off-the-shelf product is called EN Suite, and then the customized version of that is your DEQ Online. One thing that we saw is that this version of EN Suite, they were developing at the same time that we were designing our system, and so it was kind of a building a plane and flying it at the same time. But one thing I'll highlight is that it's super important to have a close working relationship with your vendor, because you spend a lot of time with them. And in some cases, like Kaitlyn said, money is the issue. In other cases, there are technical limitations of the system that you can't get around. So again, just be willing to be flexible, allocate extra budget and time.
Thanks, guys.
So, any more questions? That was a great presentation. I thank you, Kaitlyn. I thank you. Well, Hillary's gone, but I can thank Hillary and I can thank Matt, and you can thank Hillary for me. Yes, thank you very much. Any questions anyone has? Raise it now, or forever hold your peace. Oh, okay, Kaitlyn, Windsor is is it the software or is that the
That's the
company that,
vendor. Yep, the
okay,
company.
that's the vendor. Is there a name for your software?
MiEnvrio. Like N is in the letter VIRO.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, I also found it fascinating to not only watch you and hear you, but read the transcript as it was taking place, based on I think it was Cheryl's Otter AI. Um, although I found that there was a fair number of spelling issues. You know, MI versus MY.